Hello and welcome to another episode of the Complete Agent Podcast, where each week we get to educate and entertain our industry. My name is James Kendall and I'm joined as ever by my industry colleague and good friend Ian Storey, and also joined by a very special returning guest, also a very good friend of mine, Mr. Simon Gates. How you been, lads?
Good, thanks.
Very good, thank you. Very good.
How's your week been, Ian?
Yeah, good. Good again, really, given it's middle of August. Only a couple of sales agreed, but one at 1.3 and one at 8.10. So both good. And then a really good run on new listings this week. So 5 from about 650 up to 1.3. The one it's actually 1.25. It's been on with two agents before us. One at 1.375. It's on at now. It's not worth that much. And one at 1.5 before us. So we're getting it on at 1.25. Offers over, which is
Nice.
Great. Cracking listing. Period house. Desirable village. So a good run. And then I've got 2 good interviews on Saturday for our Valuations role as well.
Nice.
Which is good. Yeah, one guy who approached us via LinkedIn, who saw the post on LinkedIn, who seems really good, used to the mid to higher end, right sort of chap, I think. Another guy who also seems pretty good as well. So on the whole, all good. Off on holiday again next week though, so just sort of
It's been a while.
I'm cramming in the vals before I go. JK, how about you? How about your week?
Good. I mean, obviously it's the start of August. We haven't actually agreed a sale yet, but we're actually negotiating. Well, I say we haven't agreed a sale. We've agreed 3 sales so far between 400 and sort of 650-ish. But what we're finding is that we're not actually booking them as sales at the moment until we've got solicitors and confirmation that solicitors are instructed. Like we've always pretty good at doing that before we book a sale, but sometimes you'll book one better than others if you've got a client that's already registered with you, that's selling with you, that is buying through you, you're less inclined to err on the side of caution with those sort of things. But yeah, no, it's been pretty good. Listings again really strong. We continue to keep signing places up. I went to one really out of patch yesterday in Buckinghamshire, and it was probably, what was it, 35 minutes from the office. 1.25. I asked before the valuation was booked. Obviously, you asked the question like, why did you call us out? Because it's a bit of we've never done anything there before. There's like 39 houses, I think, in the village altogether. And I don't want to say where it is in case anyone else in that area listens to this podcast and go, well, that James Kendall. But the area, it's totally out of area. There's no way they would have heard of us before. Anyway, they're looking in our area, so like North Bedfordshire, and she just said, I love your marketing, I love the brochures you do, I love the videos you do, the photos, everything. And she said they don't really have that in my area, so I just wondered if you would come out and see me. And I said, yeah, fine. It's a gorgeous place, really lovely place. Like right in the middle of countryside. Like we stood in a garden yesterday, and all we could hear is like the sheep bleating and the birds singing, and like the river in the background. Out the front window in the kitchen, you can just see horses in a field. It's a beautiful village, really, really nice. But I've never been through it in my life. It's only one of them places that you have to physically come off the main road, drive down into kind of the middle of nowhere to kind of go to. You wouldn't go to that village for any other reason. So we had a good chat. Had to freestyle the data as well because it's out of our data loft area.
Yeah.
So I took your advice, Si, on property data, and used property data to come up with something. Wasn't as good. I felt like a little bit out of my comfort zone because it's a little bit more difficult to articulate than it is when you've got sort of data loft in front of you. We're actually not being paid by data loft, by the way, but if we were, there's at least 30 quid there. But yeah, it was just trying to find the because I my comfort zone really with the data loft is comparable properties, the minimum, average, and max someone's prepared to pay. Look at it with the square footage, and it kind of gives me something to work from. So I really had to work backwards and freestyle a bit. Anyway, as it turned out, this no pressure, by the way. This lady owns like 5 other properties. They've been in property like for years. She understands pounds per square foot. She understands the market. Like music to her ears when we were talking about base rates and interest rates, etc. Anyway, and I said, look, this is the figure I've got to, and she basically said, "Wow, I think that's spot on." To be fair, we kind of thought it was somewhere between here and here. Everything you said sounds spot on, and that was that. So, but yeah, that was a little bit of interesting. I had a conversation with Mr. Stephen Brown. Shout out to him. The industry's Mr. Nice Guy, one of my favourite people. On the way to this said appointment, which we'll go into in a minute. But before we do, Mr. Gates, how has your week been, mate? It's been a whole week since you've been on this pod.
I know. I heard like that was the set maybe one or number one, number two podcast you ever done alongside the other ones that I was on. And it was the best performing podcast I've ever released because Ian was on it, obviously. So
yeah,
there you go. You've given away where that house is. When you said about the view out the window and the birds tweeting, I was like, I know where that is in Buckinghamshire. It's definitely not near Newport Pagnell because you would have said you could hear the motorway in the back garden.
Okay. What does it begin with? What's the first letter?
No, I'm joking. I genuinely have no idea.
Okay.
But if you need someone to do like any viewings or appear in a presenter-led video, you know, if I can help you, that'd be great. I'd like to see that again one day. Anyway, how's my week been? I don't think much has changed since last week, although I think by osmosis, having spent time with Ian on calls, I'm now going on holiday. So a week on Friday, I'm in Spain for a week, which is much needed. I think as much as we take the piss out of Ian and you guys do, like I think having that like once a quarter or once a month free and recharge of the batteries. Like when you're on, right? You work really hard.
Can I just say though that we do take the piss, and we do have a laugh, but he does work bloody hard, and I would challenge anyone to find a better estate agent single office branch in the whole of the UK. Like he works bloody hard. He's he sets the standard. But yeah, of course we're going to take the piss. We're on holiday every other week.
But yeah, so looking forward to that. But I think just on the you're on or you're off. So I heard this or read this the other week, and I really liked it. We talk about work ethic, but no one talks about rest ethic, which I thought was very, very interesting because I struggle to, when I do actually go on holiday, it's that few days to like switch off. You then fully like zoned out, and then the holiday's nearly over. So yeah, it's making sure that you work hard, rest hard. And then what else been up to? Went to the cricket in London. That was very, very good. Something I will share from that. You don't need to be a cricket fan, but to cut a very long story short, it went to the final 5th day, and England had one batsman remaining, who was Chris Wokes, and he'd dislocated his shoulder. He came out to bat with a dislocated shoulder, so he had it basically like in some sort of makeshift sling under his jumper. And yeah, England didn't win. India tied the series, but fucking fair play to the bloke for sheer commitment of coming out with a dislocated shoulder to try and win a match for his country. Yeah. And I feel like such a dick saying this and trying to compare it to a state agency. But like, I think like when backs were against the wall, when the market was tough, late 22, early 23, you guys and Dave were still working your ass off. You weren't taking your foot off the gas on marketing. You were doubling down on that shit. Whereas I think a lot of agents would have stepped back.
Yeah. Our office has been a mess for the last week as well, by the way. Like the quarterly market updates, like getting 9,800 and whatever it is, like market updates out every quarter. It is carnage in there for like 3-4 days, just getting them all like stuffed, stamped, like to the post office. It is absolute carnage, but it pays dividends. And you like you said, you have to be consistent, don't you?
Yeah, and just on a couple of things actually before we do jump into the pod. I'm just curious on a couple of things with Ian. I saw online that you are looking for a new person to join your team, and seeing that stuff online and hearing what you say about someone responding from LinkedIn, James, it made me think of like the James Clear quote of like the best options are rarely on the market, because I think too many estate agents are looking to fill a hole when it's too late.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're putting out like Ian's done on socials, a team have gone to Dublin for I think a day, or you did the paddle charity stuff, and like all the things you do from the outside looking in, people are like, God, that's a nice place to work. Like if anything ever came up, I'd speak to them. Whereas
Yeah.
too many agents don't do any of that, and then they go and put some shitty ad on Indeed, and then go, "Oh, quality's really shit, isn't it?" Well, of
Yeah.
course, like
Yeah.
what else would
It
you?
is a genuinely a nice place to be. Having visited Stories,
Why are you
like,
so far up his ass today? Bloody hell!
huh?
Because you're so far up his ass today.
He owes me money. He owes me money.
Shh, don't tell anyone. But yeah, so diving in, then we're going to talk about, well, lots of different things. But I just wanted to, while it's fresh in my mind, I had a chat with Stephen Brown yesterday on the way to this appointment, and he was really curious. He asked me something else, and he said, "But while I've got you on the phone, I was listening to your pod the other week, and you guys say that you can't get anyone in for. I mean, I'm probably about 10 days, and then you guys are what 2-3 weeks now. I mean, you're booking people in for September, aren't you? In
To booking Val's.
yeah,
Yeah, no, longer than that. Yeah, I mean, partly because I'm going away, because we're only one valuer, me currently. Obviously, we can't do any Val for the last 2 weeks in August, basically. So that's partly the reason. But
mm-hmm.
yeah, we're booking the next Val slots are basically the third week in September. So the way we handle a conversation is I always say to the team to ask the seller what their timescale is to putting the house on the market, because
Yeah,
we all know that people want a Val today, but they might not be selling for 3 years, or they just want to know now, don't they?
yeah,
So I always say to the team, say to them, what's your timescale for putting the house on the market? Because that sort of roots out, or to a degree, it roots out those who really want to go on and those who are just fishing for data, fishing for the price.
yeah,
But yeah, we just say we're extremely busy, we're very, very sought after, and our next slot is this. Most people are okay with it. The team know that if it's a mega place, that I'll find time.
yeah,
And especially at this time of year with the lighter evenings that we've still got, you can find time, can't you, in the evenings if
yeah,
you need to. So the team know that they check it out on Spectre, and if it's something that we really want, I'll go, or I'll even move another appointment out the way and go to these nicer houses.
yeah.
But yeah, on the whole, we just tell people we're busy and that we ask what their timescale is for moving, and it goes down well. Generally speaking, it goes down fine. There is the odd one in the last few months that we've lost, but it is what it is.
We had one yesterday, and it's interesting because, like, people talk about conversion rates, and we had one literally yesterday afternoon. I was stood next to Sandra when the call came in the office, and it was like, I want a valuation today. If you can't do it today, then I'll go with somebody else. And
Yeah.
I think Sandra handled the call brilliantly, and she said, with respect, obviously, we are in demand, pretty much like you said, but also, you've got to ask yourself, sir, if somebody can come out to you and put your house on and
Right.
value your house today, how good is that going to be? And if you compare it to like tradesmen, if you can get a builder to do an extension on your house tomorrow, then
Yeah.
they're probably not the builder you want building your extension
No.
on your house.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how we relate. But also, valuations like that, if you don't train your team and set expectations, your valuation conversion rate will be a lot lower, because that house that we could have gone to, I could have gone to it yesterday, but it was on the day, super demanding. What's your fee? We're getting divorced. I just thought, there's no part of me, and to be honest, the house was probably 450, 500. And I thought to myself, there's a few things in that conversation and the way that conversation's gone, that it's not just about the price of the house. It's not the fact that they just want it today. It's just the attitude of the potential client.
Yeah.
And I just thought, if they're like to work with on a valuation call, what on earth are they going to be like to work with over a period of 3 to 6 months?
Yeah.
I think.
So you want to say something?
Well, I think I was about to say exactly what you've just said, and just add another bit onto that. Usually, those ones who want the valuation there and then want too much money, want a cheap fee, and will be a pain in the ass. And I think the other thing you got me thinking of when you first started talking, and then when Ian was answering, was if someone wants to go buy a Rolex, they're not just walking into Rolex and going, "Can I have one Rolex, please?" They go, "Really sorry, but you have to wait months in advance and order it." Like, we make them specially. Is someone going to go, "All right, piss off, and I won't buy a Rolex. I'll go next to the patio."
Yeah.
Like, so I think, that's important. And then also, I think on the conversion rate sort of things, if you are booking typically a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks in advance, it gives you an opportunity to do that kind of 7-11-4 and build up that know, like, and trust. So they get a confirmation email. if you've got time and you're passing, you hand deliver a brochure through a letterbox. They get a video come through, whatever. But if it's they ring at 9 o'clock and say, can you come at 11, and then you just come out and you're one of three in a beauty parade, they're going to shop on the cheapest fee and the highest price.
Yeah,
just no point in it. And I love what Sandra had said, but if an agent can come out to you very quickly, just like a builder can, like I'd question why are they freely available like that. And if they're not managing their time correctly, how are they going to be effective in selling the house?
100%. And the other thing as well is that even back in the day, before we were fortunate enough to be booking well in advance, we always used to say that anyway. We always used to say like at least 2-3 days ahead because the diary was full. Because it's that perception, isn't it? I think you the right sort of client, if they perceive that you're busy and that you're already, people are booking you in demand, then it's that perception. Well, we definitely want this. And it's a bit like, going on to fees as well. Making the jump to charge 2% plus VAT. When a lot of agents, now the market has changed, agents have raised their fees. We're seeing, and we're talking about 1.1 to 1.2% here, but they're marginal gains, and obviously agents are recognizing that they can't sustain 0.75% because they just won't be there next year. But also equally, when you're in the living room, people are actually looking at and listening to you a lot more intently when you quote 2%, because you've got agent A at 1%, you've got agent B at 1.1%, and then you get agent C at 2%. They're thinking, well, there wasn't really a lot of difference between 1 and 1.1. What's this 2 guy about? And then, without plugging you directly, because this wasn't planned, it's just freestyling coming on the top of my head. The data that you've given us, Si, like myself, Ian, Dave, and obviously some of our members as well, being able to go into the sitting room or the dining room and have the conversation across the table and say, in this patch, how likely do you think you are to move with the average agent? How likely are you to exchange contracts? And in 2024 in this area, it was, I think, 52% or 48%. Our stats have just changed now, but it was like 48%. And then for us, it was like 80 odd percent to exchange contracts. So, to articulate it perfectly, do you want to flip a coin to see whether you move house, or do you want a nearly 90% chance of moving house?
You know what, JK? You've just given me another idea there. So I don't, when I'm going through that data, so we're not quite as high as you. I think we're like nearly high 70s of what we exchange on. The average agent's like 53. So it's still loads better. But what I don't do is ask them what they think the percentage chance is of selling.
I think you'd be surprised.
Yeah.
That's one thing I do on a lot of vows is I ask a lot of questions to them. And that's one of the questions I ask because I think it sinks in more to the sellers, and you get an idea of what their perception is, because a lot of people saying, I don't know, 70, 80%.
Yeah.
And then when you hit them with the boom 50%, or 48, whatever it was back then, that's when they really go, wow, really? And then they really start to take notice of what you're saying. And then, we also achieve 2.8% more than the average agent as well. So if we're charging you another percent than the other agent, you're still better off and you're still more likely to move.
I think that data and then the language, like when you say, what are your chances, Mr. Seller, you think of actually moving home? And they go, well, it's probably a cert, isn't it? 80, 90%. Actually, with the average agent, you've got a flip of a coin chance. I think rather than saying 50%, saying flip of a coin, just the brain goes, well, that's really shit, isn't it? Flip of a coin.
Gamble.
Yeah. And when I saw Tom Panos speak recently, what was it he said? Let's say you've got a property on the market for £1 million and you've got an offer of 975 and the owner wants £1 million. It's like, Mr. Seller, would you go to the roulette table and bet £975,000 to get £25,000 back? No, I obviously wouldn't, Tom. Right? Why are we trying to bet 975,000 to win 25?
That's a great analogy. You said that the other week, and that stuck with me. I haven't used it yet, but it's just refreshed it. I do think these things, this is where the nuggets are for people that listen to these podcasts. That when you listen and you take something like that, it's actually implementing and using that on your next val. The amount of times that I used to listen to Sam Hunter and listen to him talk about his no regrets offer. Sorry, Sam, if you're listening to this with a really poor Australian accent. But when in that time period, there was a pod that the Third Best Podcast did, which was about in the COVID market, was you're getting your best and final offer, and it was think about your no regrets offer, and literally I listened to that pod that day, and that afternoon when I was negotiating with 3 different people, I just said there, and he said about the Hawaii price, and I used that on that day, and I was like, this is gold, this is great.
JK, tell us that. I don't think I know that. Tell us what the Hawaii price is.
The Hawaii price is the what is the Hawaii price now? It's got out of my head now.
Basically, what price would the seller be happy with? Where it's like we've earned some extra money, where we can take.
Oh yes, that's right. Yeah, sorry, yeah.
And I think it's for me when I heard that as well. Where my brain went was it's not just about when you're selling someone's property. You as estate agents, you are, I'm going to say, wealth managers, but your vehicle is property, not stocks and shares.
Mm-hmm. So, for example, Warburton likes this.
You say that again, sorry.
I said Dave Warburton likes. Dave loves a wealth manager, doesn't he?
on the wealth manager side of things, if you gave someone advice about, and James, I think you said it in pod previously to a friend, but you give someone advice around an extension, a loft conversion, a garage conversion, or buy to let, whatever, and someone's like, wow, I've just increased the value of my home, or I've just bought a good buy to let property, and it's like, great, so you've perhaps going to make some money over time, and that's like the Hawaii money. If they're sat there on a beach in Hawaii with a pina colada, looking out at the sea and going, James Kendall paid for this. I actually remember in my home search days, an estate agent sent me a message when they're at the Super Bowl saying, you paid for this.
Yeah.
I'm not fucking there, am I?
No.
It was like the advice you gave me through doing letters on home search was a pot that I put to one side that paid and got me to the Super Bowl.
It's interesting about that. Just jogged my memory. Like when we first met in 2020, I think it was, wasn't it? Digitally.
Yeah.
And we were talking about, because we'd always done kind of sporadic direct mail back then, and the odd. And to be fair, we'd been using Spectre back in 2015, I think it was, whenever it like first started. But really, when you got me to think about the letters and who they're going to, and what really stuck out for me that time, and what really made me double down and continuously do direct mail from there on in, was when we sent letters out. I mean, Richard was on board as well. Like, he was fully on board at this. The thing is, he was a little bit skeptical at first with Rich. Shout out to Rich. But he's one of these people that is very skeptical. But if he sees something working, he almost does the opposite of most estate agents, and that he'll just continually double down on the same thing because he knows it works. And you know what it was like? How many Zooms did you book in with him to send letters over time? He was like, I want to book in and send letters with Simon. What do I do? How do I do it? And then we obviously taught him how to do it within Home Search for himself at the time when we were using Home Search. But the first property that really kind of stood out to me was the most expensive house that's ever sold in Ampthill, and they got a Home Search letter. That was a house called The Clearing, like proper grand designs on an acre in the middle of like one of the best towns. And bearing in mind, at that time we were based in Kempston, which is like not a, I say, affluent town, shall we say. And to get a response from that, I was on a holiday, Rich went out to see it, got it on the market, and we sold it. And there's all these other agents in that area that are thinking, how on earth have they got through the door of that house? And that for me really sort of sunk in as to how important direct mail is. But also it's the content and who you're sending it to. Like, for example, just going back to that house I went to yesterday, we're really getting quite a bit of traction at the moment on our home buying service. So that helping people find their next home. It's a great way to get 2%, if you're helping people buy onwards. We've also agreed with some clients that we'll take money up front for the letters, and we'll send out a like specific search. What I do in the living room is I get my iPad out and I show them Spectre. So I'll say, for example, right, let's draw a triangle around the area you want to be in. Then we'll filter down. Yesterday we're like, well, we can, and this is the gripe we had with Rightmove, is that, and I've got at the moment when I'm thinking about moving, is you can't filter by plot size on Rightmove, which is really frustrating. However, they are specifically looking for something with at least 3/4 of an acre plot, and they want to be in a certain area in North Bedfordshire. And it was really powerful to be able to draw a triangle on my iPad screen, filter by 0.75 acres upwards, filter by 4 bedrooms because they wanted 4 bedrooms, and just see, I think there was 239 properties that came up on the screen, and then show them the next screen where I could go, right, in this screen, I showed them an example of one of the letters we give to our members in TCA, and she said, that is brilliant. She goes, I get the letters through all the post all the time that say, we've got buyers, or get a free no obligation valuation. But the level of detail that the buyer letter goes into in terms of who that person is, why they're searching, what they're looking for, and then taking it to another level, because we didn't actually send that last lot through Spectre. We got the address data, and what we did is we hand wrote the envelopes, handwrite and stamp the envelopes, just to get that open rate. And we had such a great response. I think we sent 80 odd letters out, and we've had 10 responses. How, if you knew that you could get that kind of ROI and response rate on direct mail, I mean, they haven't gone anywhere yet because they've only literally just started to land. But if you knew that you could do that every time, why are you not constantly doing it? And that's why our sort of trifecta of attack at the moment is on market letters to everything that we want to go after, not on the market quarterly updates, which we send out every quarter anyway, and then the buyer letters that we're sending out on behalf of buyers as well.
Yeah, I think on the VIP buyer side of things, it's funny because you back in 2020, when I was opening up Home Search Explorer on a Zoom and saying to agents, right, we're going to send out letters on behalf of buyers, and they'd be like, what? No, I need more houses to sell. I don't want to help buyers. And they'd look at me like I'm an alien. And there's something I read up on the other day, which is called the Cassandra effect. I can't remember the exact language behind it, but it's basically when you have such an outlandish idea that people think you are insane. And one of the examples was, they said someone had such an outlandish idea, they put them in a mental institute. They section said, you're crazy. A few decades later, it turns out they were right.
Yeah.
So 5 years ago, Sam and I kept banging this drum of most sellers don't put their house on the market until they've found somewhere to buy. Stop offering free valuations, start offering a service to help them find somewhere. And funnily enough, the people who started doing that were seeing results. But you get some agents who go, yeah, but that doesn't work. I used to work at Countrywide, or I worked here, and we used to send out letters saying we have buyers. It's like, we didn't send out letters. It was a comp slip from head office that said we have buyers. And funnily enough, the person in Milton Keynes had the same handwriting as the person in Manchester.
Yeah.
And that doesn't work. But when it says Simon and Louise are looking to live in Stoke Goldington, they need half an acre plot, and 4 bedrooms detached, over 2,000 square feet. If you're contemplating a move in the near future, we'd love to have a conversation with you. Someone's reading that and going, I am thinking of moving in the next 6 months, and you've just described my house.
But I also contextualized that for the lady that I was saying, because she was very skeptical in the beginning before I showed her the letter. And when I showed her the letter and I said, if that came through your door now and they said, I want to live in said village, I'm looking for said house that's character, overlooking the river, with fields surrounding, I'm a cash buyer, or they are a cash buyer up to whatever amount. If you'd be interested in having a confidential conversation about your moving plans and moving forward, would you respond to that letter? And she was like, yeah, absolutely, I would. I said, well, there you go.
Yeah.
You don't know. Yes, you're talking about going on the market sometime either in the next 2-3 weeks or potentially next spring. But if this landed through your door, if somebody offered you £1.4 million cash to buy your house, without taking a photo, without advertising online, what would your response be? And she goes, well, obviously I would take it. And I said, well, there you go. And that's how this works.
Yeah, I think giving them that option as well. I mean, it shows that you're a proactive estate agent, and the amount of agents who win business because they say, I've got buyers for your house, whereas someone's like, I can stick it on Rightmove. Well, I can actually go and speak to buyers is obviously a powerful thing. And on that as well, I think something Dave said in terms of, you don't know what someone's going to accept, or they don't know what they're going to accept until they get an offer. So it's like, if someone comes with a briefcase full of £50 notes at 950, you accept it? No. 975? No. 980? Yes. All right. Well, those people who are not yet on the market, they get a letter through the door and they're like, oh, if someone could pay me top money and I don't need to go to market, I am a year away from being ready, but I could speed up my decision making if the buyer's right and the money's right. And just shout out to Stephen Brown again. I remember when he did a masterclass online, probably during COVID, with Daniel Spencer from Oz, and the line that I just continuously use since: every home is on the market. It's just the more motivated ones that put for sale signs up. And
Yeah.
it's so true. I think just one other little tactic I would add into what you're saying. When you do, I don't know if you guys still do this, to be fair, but go on to Rightmove Plus, do a best price guide when you're going out on a val, reverse engineer it, put in a kind of search of what your buyer's looking for, go back over the last few years, scroll through it and pick out the ones that are archived, and then show them the list and say, right, out of these 10 that are on the market in the last few years that didn't go on to complete, which ones do you like the look of? And then go and send them a very specific letter or door knock them.
Do you know what? It's really funny about that, size. I literally did that last night with my missus on the sofa, because we are thinking about moving and we're looking in this particular area. And I remember one that went up, and I'm not sure whether it sold or not. And I was like, look, we could live down this. I drove down the road. What day are we today? Thursday. I drove down there Tuesday and said, look, this is kind of, I think if we're going to move to this village, this is where I'd want to be. It's like a 1950s detached, half an acre plot, lovely location. Obviously, I said, look, hear me out. And it's quite a lot of money for what it is. But I said, look, we could possibly buy this for 850, 900. I said, and then I drove around to the next road. I said, and this is what we can build. It's exactly the same it's the same plot, same style house as what's there. And she was like, yeah, great. So I literally came home and went on Rightmove Plus, and I had a look, and it didn't, supposedly didn't transact. So once we're in a position, then I'm going to knock on the door and say, do you want to sell your house? And see what happens. You never know.
I think those, not just on the VIP buyer side of things, but for anyone listening, I can't tell you what an untapped market the withdrawn opportunities are at the moment. I've said it for months and months and months now, and I'm seeing a return to market of those sellers who maybe came off in late 22, early 23. Market, let's say, shit at that point compared to what it is now.
Yeah.
So a lot of those sellers are going, hang on a minute, interest rate's a bit lower now. I'm seeing more sold board through my village. I'm seeing more property available. Actually, I will come back to market. So that's a really, really good thing to do. Go target those withdrawn properties, but not to also forget the ones that withdrew with you. Make sure you go back to them and saying, hey, John, remember your good old client, John, who sells a lot of houses for you. Bringing him up and say, look, I know things didn't quite work out a year, 18 months ago, but market's in a better place. Would you still consider moving?
Shall we have a quick chat about the data that we've, as I say, you have just presented to us. You sent something over to me yesterday and the day before, actually, in terms of where the city thinks interest rates are going to go. I think a few people shared it on their socials. Obviously, we're recording this on Thursday, the 7th of August, early in the morning, and hopefully at 11, 12 o'clock-ish, or 11 a.m. they meet, isn't it? And 12 p.m. normally we have the decision, but there's pretty much odds on for them to chop the base rate to 4%. And if I'm right in thinking, the city has kind of forecasted another cut by the end of the year to 3.5%. And that's obviously having a knock-on effect on interest rates. I think you can get 3.7 something percent now at 40% loan to value.
Yeah. So on the interest rates, I think, first of all, this is proper geeky from me, and I don't know if you guys know this, but when
that's really out of character, mate. That is not like you whatsoever. Who is this guy?
Trying to ruin my street cred. I'm really cool. I'm like road. When the MPC meet every 6 weeks to vote on the base rate, the journalists are also in the Bank of England, but they're locked away in the basement.
Yeah.
So because they know long before the outside world do, so that they can get all their reports ready for when it goes live to BBC. So they get locked in the basement, their phones are taken away, but they're there and they know an hour beforehand. I just find it fascinating. So that's the geek that I am. But there we go. In terms of interest rates, so the 2-year, 5-year fixed rates have actually got to a point now where they are the same.
They're parity, aren't they? Yeah.
Whereas that's the first time that's happened, I think, since the mini budget. So the 5-year rates had been more expensive than the 2-year rates. It's normally the other way around. Yeah. So it's showing where the markets think that interest rates are going. yeah, Bank of England today should drop from 4.25 to 4. That's a foregone conclusion, I think. But out of the 9 members, there's going to be a split. There'll be a few who want to drop 0.25. There's probably going to be a couple who want to cut it by 0.5. And then there's probably going to be a couple who want to keep it where it is. But it shows the path of interest rates. And yeah, I said to you guys before we hit record, and I'd recommend you guys and anyone listening to subscribe to moneyfactscompare.co.uk. So I get emails probably a few days a week from them. And what I basically got today was at the start of August 24, so a year ago, that's when the base rate dropped to 5%. So the first cut was a year ago. It's now dropped 0.75%, shaving off in total. And then we should see 0.25% come off today. So since August 24, the average 2-year fixed rate has fallen from 5.77 to 5.01. And the 5-year rate has dropped from 5.38 to 5.01.
Yeah.
Respectively, last month they were 5.09 and 5.08. So again, anyone out there who's like, oh, wait till rates come down, they're just dropping just slowly but surely. And then where was it? What did they say? So the continuation of falling mortgage rates will install a sense of confidence amongst borrowers. The Moneyfacts average mortgage rate has dropped 0.41% over the past 6 months and 0.61% year on year. Lenders have also been relaxing stress tests to further support mortgage customers.
Yeah, I was going to say that because there was a few things on first-time buyers and self-employed business owners, wasn't there? There's a few sort of rules that have been relaxed around that, isn't there?
Yeah, so essentially buyers can borrow more money, which is meaning that there's tens of thousands of people who can now get mortgages who couldn't do a few months ago.
Yeah.
Just a caveat on that, if the public start reading that and just wrongly assume, well, people have now got more money to spend, they haven't, it means they can borrow more.
Yeah.
Which
also, as well, the reality check. I don't know if it was your socials the other day or when we were chatting, is that the whole, buyers think it's 2008, sellers think it's 2021, and our job is just consistently managing expectations. And when people are seeing things like that and they're going, well, people have got more money to spend now, but there's still a decade high level of stock. And buyer demand grew by 3%, where new stock grew by 11% in June. Obviously, the latest HPI is slightly different now, but I think that was telling. And in the June HPI, the killer stat there was that I think it was 30% of properties over 750 had been reduced.
Wow.
It's like when when you get the negative commentators who love to talk the market down, when they see price reductions, they're like, I told you the market's crashing, it's falling, we'll get there. What's that saying? A broken clock is right twice a day. Like there will be a time when the market does go down, that person will be right and get kicked off. But those are just never worth that money in the first place, right? Just estate agents overinflating to win the business, or sellers just being overly optimistic, as they always are. But on your point around rates, again, just looking at the notes here, December 21, the average 2-year fixed rate was 2.34%.
Wow.
August 23, it was 6.85%, and it's currently sitting at 5%. So whilst it's obviously down 1.5 to 2% on the peak of the summer-autumn 23, that's still double what it was in COVID. So there's the extra buying power that's just been sucked up.
We talked about it last week, didn't we? On the pod, in terms of in the COVID market from 20 to 22, people had an SDLT holiday. They had 1.3 to 1.8% interest rates. Aggregate inflation's at over 30% now. Just talking about the inflation rate at 3.6% now that the government are reporting. It's always been very hard for them to drop rates when inflation's so high, and but also equally, I think it's telling. It's a very difficult space to comprehend if you're not. And listen, I haven't got a degree in politics and the economics, but I've learned as I've gone. But I do think if you can really add value to the people listening here, Si, is how would you, to ask you a question? Obviously, interest rate drop hopefully happening today, where inflation's at. How would you explain that to a 15-year-old. So if I had to explain that to somebody in the living room, like in really simple terms, and there'll be like, if I listened to this podcast probably 8 years ago, 9 years ago, before I kind of educated myself, I'd be like, inflation, interest rates, like, and there was that thing you said on the pod the other week, good agents know what's happening, great agents know,
Understand.
understand what's happening, and then the top agents can articulate what's happening. I just think it would be really powerful for those people that maybe are listening to this. They want to educate themselves, but they just feel a little bit overwhelmed by all of the long words and language. Like, being an that's your job, and what you do, you turn data into stories. How would you articulate that to an agent for them to then regurgitate that into the living rooms?
Cool. So first of all, you said that you don't like have a politics degree. I studied politics at A levels and quit after 1 week. So got that in my locker because it was boring. Well, how would I explain it? So I think in kind of layman's terms, let's say in 2021, let's say, how am I going to use this? In 2021, you're borrowing £10 and you only need to pay someone back £2.50 in borrowing that 10 quid. Not only that though, I'm going to give you a quid to actually borrow that 10 quid as well.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense so far?
Kind of. So what you're saying is that you, so say that again. So you're giving me 10 quid to buy something.
So it's 2021. You're borrowing some money. So you're borrowing 10 quid.
Yeah.
And the interest on when you pay it back is only £2.50. But I tell you what, actually, as an incentive to borrow that 10 quid, I'll give you an extra quid as well.
Fine.
So that's kind of like the stamp duty holiday part of it.
Yeah.
You then fast forward to 2023, and it's like, okay, you've now got 10 quid you're borrowing, but I'm actually going to charge you £5 interest, and you don't get £1 back.
Yeah.
And then fast forward to where we are now, and it's like, well, you can borrow 10 quid. The interest, you're not going to get £1 from me, and the interest is going to be £3.50.
Yeah.
Now, which person do you think is more likely to borrow that money and go and spend it? The first person, the second person, or the third person?
Well, yeah, exactly. The first person all day long, isn't it?
So it's the first person. So I think like I guess the four not controllable is not the right word. The four things that impact a market are supply, demand, cost of borrowing money, and then what sentiment is in the market. Those four things control whether you're seeing a good market or a bad market.
So yeah, I mean, for somebody that wants to articulate that in the lounge, it's the power. The power is knowing how much people have got to spend, how much they can spend. Because I mean, like, if I moved in, because we moved in 2019, just before the COVID market really kicked off, and if I'd known what I'd known, I probably would have held on a little bit longer. But also equally, the other thing as well that I think we're missing from that COVID market, and we need to be telling people now, is that whilst the COVID market was a lot cheaper to buy in, and it was a lot more financially, let's say financially, what do I want to say? The incentives were a lot more financial. The downside of that market was that you had 15 minutes to decide where you were going to live for the rest, the next 5 to 10, 15, 20 years. There's a lot. How many people have we seen go to the market that moved in 2022 that are either called back into the city because they now, they can't work from home permanently? How many people have, had that epiphany where they wanted to move to the coast and go, actually, I don't like it, I want to move back. So I would say that, I had a conversation with somebody, I think it was yesterday or the day before, and I said, whilst the market has changed and it's not as financially attractive to move now as it maybe was, 4 years ago, the reality is you can choose where you want to live. You've got a bit of time, and negotiations have been a lot more protracted, I think, on some of the sort of higher end. I don't know what you're seeing, Ian. It might be worth a conversation as well quickly on here, just in terms of, are you seeing a lot more protracted negotiations at the moment?
Yeah, much longer on the whole. Yeah, there's the odd one that sneaks in quite quickly, but they're quite rare. We've got one actually that I was handling yesterday. The guy offered on it 3 weeks ago. He can't proceed. Okay, but he's kind of got a buyer in the background. Anyway, this has been really hard to sell, higher end. we had a conversation. He was 100 grand off what the seller wanted 3 weeks ago. I actually had a random missed call from him earlier this week. I was like, oh, he's coming back. He must come back to the table on this house. So I messaged him and I said, oh, I've had a missed call from you, John. You know, is it about X property? Can I help? He said, oh, no, it's actually about something else that I've seen that you've got, but that's now been sold. He said, so it don't matter, forget about it. So I said, oh, well, I've got you. You know, should we have another conversation about X house that you offer
Yeah.
on? You know, where you at with it? I know you were concerned about updating the bathrooms, and he was like, yeah, I still feel how I did. My offer of X still stands, and it actually became 80 grand off what the seller wanted. So I said, okay, well, look, I'll let me have a conversation with the seller, see where he's at. The seller has already bought his onward, so he can move on. He was on about renting it out. I said, look, I've spoken to him. He's still roughly where he was. I thought we should maybe re-engage with him, maybe talk about costs for what he wants to do and see if we can find a midpoint. And the seller has now come down again on what he wanted from last time.
Yeah.
So he's now sort of 30 grand off what the guy offered. So I thought, right, we're going to be able to tie it up here.
Yeah.
So I spoke to this guy yesterday and I got him to where he needs to be. So basically we've got an agreed price. Now he's got a house to sell, but it should sell. And we won't take it off the market until he's sold. But I think that will become a sale. But yeah, that's taken 3-4 weeks to get.
It's a deal to be done, isn't it? I mean,
definitely a deal to be done there. Yeah. And on others, it's the same. Above, you know, we've got viewings this weekend on a really nice house. I think it'll go. It's very, very, very special. One of the people who's viewing it though is viewing 4 with us, all sort of high ones over 2 mil. You know, so they're viewing loads before they're deciding.
They can now though. That's the difference. There's because of that decade high stock. You know, if you're looking at where you want to move for the next 20 to 25 years as a generational home, you know, you would. But whereas you didn't have that luxury 4 or 5 years ago.
No, exactly. Yeah. So it's communicating that with the seller. It's communicating with the seller on the val is the key thing.
100%.
You know, and getting that across. And I actually used one of your tactics earlier this week on one of the listings that's given us the go ahead. It's been overpriced by the other agents, and I said to them, look, would you accept? Let's say it was on at $1 million with the other agent, overpriced. I said, you know, would you accept? You know, if 950 came along, proceedable, now would you accept it?
Yeah.
Well, I'm not sure. 960. And they were like, I don't know, really. Maybe I said 965, 970. And I got them to a point where they were like, yeah, probably would. Yeah. I said, well, you need to be on an offers of a 950 or even offers of a 9, you know, not a mil plus. So using that kind of language worked really, really well. It really made them think.
What is interesting on that as well, like I'll cap off the protracted negotiations in a second, because we've had one. I mean, I can do it now. We've got one that's been going on for 2 weeks, and we're within 20 grand touching distance now, when we were in over 100 grand before. And it's explaining to, you know, the sellers that the negotiations can be a lot more protracted now than say they were previously. But just on getting them on the right price, you know, we've had conversations with sellers where we've said, look, you need to be on an X price to get the interest. They've kind of ignored our advice and said, look, we want to pitch it at this offers over price, which isn't on a price banding. And then a house that we've then listed that they're really interested in has taken our advice and has gone on the next price band below. They've rang up about it and said, oh, yeah, we really want to see that one. You know, what's the crack on that one? I said, well, what we've done is, as we said to you, we've knocked it the next price band down, but now we've got a weekend full of viewings, and we've got, like, I think 12 back-to-back viewings this Saturday on the same house. It's at like 500 grand, but it's that kind of getting the interest, and then they can now have the pick of the buyer. But whereas these guys haven't taken our advice, you know, and we obviously want to work with them. It's their home, you know. Ultimately, it's their decision. We are the experts, but you know, you can take a horse to water sometimes. And what's frustrating is that, you know, they then said, well, you know, can we do that on ours? I said, well, this is what we're saying. We can't generate 12 viewings on your house from nothing. There's no silver bullet. We needed to be on an X price in order to do that, and that's what we needed to do. And then you could have had, you know, this price probably and more, but you could have had your pick of the buyers, because it's all about the buyers perceiving what is a good value home within the market. You know, you said it the other week, Ian, if the house is priced right and it's marketed well, it will sell. And just getting it above, I think we had a conversation about said house as well, Si, when you saw it go on Instagram. And you said, blimey, that
I wanted to buy it.
Exactly. You're like, that looks good value, and it's exactly that. If the data and marketing expert in an industry is going, blimey, that looks like good value. Like, it's presented well, it's a good house, and the market agrees. We've already had people trying to throw money at us at the next price band before the viewing on a Saturday, where the other agents had all pitched it before we've even done the viewings, and we've qualified all of these viewings and said, look, reality is this is probably where it's going to go. It's offers over. Don't come in if your max budget is this. What is your max budget? And now we've got 12 people back to back this Saturday that are all going to be in amazing positions, and hopefully we should outperform. And I was speaking to a TCA member the other day, and they were saying that they were struggling with some buyers, like getting buyers through the door of a house. And I just think if you can just get your sellers to agree, and as Dave says, take them out of their comfort zone and drop them down to the next price band, you will reap the rewards, because the people will come, and then you're almost a purveyor of buyers, if you want to put it that way. That's probably the wrong way to put it, but if you get people through the door and you've got 7 or 8 people, you can help your clients select the best buyer and hopefully get the best possible price for it. So I think we've covered quite a lot. Is there anything else that you guys want to cover before we call it a day?
I think just very quickly on a couple of things, conscious of my bad internet earlier. Just very quickly, if someone was buying a house for 250 grand 5 years ago,
yeah,
at a 2% mortgage, you're talking about £739 a month over 30 years. Let's say over that 5 years, the property's gone up 20%, which it comfortably has as an average in the country. To now buy that 300 grand house at a 4% interest rate would be £1,194 a month. So it's an extra £455 a month to be paying the mortgage on the same house, which is an extra 60%.
Yeah.
Which I think I said last week. And then you said about length of time people have been in places. I was looking at some data yesterday, and about 25% of sales in 2025 had been in their home less than 5 years. 1 in 4 had been in their home less than 5 years of sold this year.
Wow.
That goes back to that point I just made a minute ago about COVID, doesn't it? Where people have had that epiphany and they've gone, oh, I want to move to the coast. And then all of a sudden you find that they're now moving back because they need to be able to commute to work. They need, to be near the schools. They want to be back near their friends, near their family, etc. But I mean, that great point to end on. And I think that, it really kind of hammers it home, because not only are we talking about £400 a month in that scenario there in terms of your interest, but it's everything else. The 33% aggregate inflation over the last 5 years, where not only is your mortgage £400 more expensive, your house is probably triple the amount to heat than it was then before. Your supermarket shop is doubled. Everything is more expensive. And it's getting that across to sellers. And when they hear the pounds and pence and numbers, because let's be honest, unless they're selling with no chain, if they're moving in the market, they're going to be hit with that pain as well.
Yeah.
And it's articulating that pain, so they know, well, 4 or 5 years ago I could have bought X, but the reality is I'm now buying at Y. And that's what it looks like to your buyer buying your house, which is why we need to get it on at X price. Cool. Well, it seems like a good place to. Really appreciate you joining us today. And Dave, I hope you're having a great holiday, mate. It's probably my turn to have a holiday actually next week, is it? Or is it your turn, Ian? One of us is due.
It's mine, definitely mine. Yeah,
it's yours. Yeah, perfect. Right. Well, look, thanks everyone for listening. Thanks so much for Simon joining us again as well. Opening the Gates, the second best podcast in the industry. Check it out. Like, subscribe. Check him out. Join him out on Facebook. Try and do what you did the other week, mate. Plug you, because you're a great bloke. Right, have a good week, everyone, and we'll see you next week.
Bye.